Hi everyone. I'm dreading making this video. Mostly in part because I had high hopes and expectations as usual and they're not being met, and so I've just got to get this off my chest and so I can just kind of move forward with what I want to do. As you know, I got a late start in planting for my season. I didn't really have a fall-winter season here to overplant things for cool flower crops, and so that kind of set me back a little bit. And I knew this was going to happen, but I had some hope that with the more than mild temps that we've been having, that my flowers would get kind of a boost and get going. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. I did anticipate having to use a wholesale route in order to kind of supplement my flowers for Mother's Day, because I knew I wasn't going to have any focals in at this point, and I might have to leverage some other, disc or greenery flowers or things like that just to kind of make things look a little bit more better and presentable for Mother's Day. Well, flowers that I looked at as of today that I have growing in my yard is not where I want them to be. I've got 3 weeks as I film this before Mother's Day, and I have snapdragons that are only 6 inches tall at this point. I have cosmos that are 8 to 10 inches tall and already budding, even after they've been pinched. Can't explain that. I have Sweet Annie that has already bloomed out, that is 4 inches tall. So I have planted a ton of straw flowers to have them all completely die. What I was anticipating on having was Rudbeckia that overwintered, and it now looks absolutely atrocious outside. I had planted bee balm at the earliest possible opportunity that I could in my front bed, and it is nowhere near being ready to pick as it was last season. Any larkspurs that I planted were completely wiped out by a freak heat wave that we had in March. My zinnia seedlings look like absolute shit because in said freak heat wave, I had a small weekend getaway planned. And we left on that, and all of my zinnias decided that they wanted to go leggy and go insanely crazy. And so I had zinnias that went from 3-inch seedlings to almost 8 or 9-inch seedlings, which is not good because that means they are pretty much stretching themselves and using all of their energy. Those were transplanted outside as a Hail Mary because it was almost 100 transplants, and those transplants look like garbage, and I've not been able to get them to come around outside of maybe a couple of the floret ones that I put out and a couple others scattered here and there. I have 60-day sunflowers that should have been producing blooms that are barely 3 inches tall. Yeah, so I don't know what is going on out here other than I can explain some of it. Our water is awful. It is highly chlorinated. And we were actually forewarned by our neighbors as they used to grow vegetables that they basically said that the water ruined everything when the new water company came in. And we're finding that to be the case actually with our own vegetable garden as well. Things that Paul has planted, he should have been harvesting now, are barely out of seedling stage at this point. They're just a few inches tall. That's insanely frustrating. So this afternoon, after going outside, as a Hail Mary, I threw down a bunch of Plantone fertilizer. Not that it's going to help. I don't think it's going to help in 3 weeks. And I decided to go the route of looking up wholesale. And I said, I'm still going to try the market. Maybe I'll have flowers later on in the season that I can continue to sell, and at least make my sales in Mother's Day take maybe a slight loss. The wholesaler that I want is up in Phoenix. That is 3 hours away from where I live. For Mother's Day, like any smart wholesaler, they completely jack their pricing up. So instead of paying maybe $17 for a bunch for something, you're paying $19 to $20 a bunch for 10 stems. And doing the math on that for the amount of bouquets that I would ideally like to have, it doesn't make sense. It does not make sense for a market gardener to go wholesale route unless they are supplementing 1 or 2 things. But in my case, I have nothing. I have absolutely nothing. other than maybe some wallflowers that I could sell at Mother's Day market in 3 weeks. And maybe some very tiny cosmos in a mason jar, and maybe some snapdragons in a mason jar. And to me, that's not worth it. And so I have made the decision that since my plans no longer even fully really exist out here, I'm just gonna cut it. I'm just literally gonna throw in the towel and move on with what I want to do. When I say throw in the towel, I don't necessarily mean I'm going to stop farming and gardening. I need to be in the right place to do it. The other thing is that whatever I have out there, whatever I have started inside here still, is still going to be going out. It's still going to be transplanted out. I'm still going to try to water it my best, harvest what I can for dried flower purposes, but I am no longer going the flower market route. For me to put down, $600 to $700 on flowers for one weekend, and to not even be promised those sales because there's so many unknown variables out here that I'm dealing with. It's not like a main market in the Midwest where people are excited to be out and about, and they take mom there to walk around, and it's beautiful weather. Out here, come May, the snowbirds are gone. A lot of people kind of retreat inside because we're starting to get into the 90 to 100 degree temps slowly. Not saying that will be the case for Mother's Day, but again, there's just too many unknown variables that I'm not familiar enough with to justify that massive of a purchase for one weekend or one day of selling flowers. It's painful, but it's my reality. Just to continue on mindlessly does not make sense to me. To waste my own personal money does not make sense to me when I've already dumped hundreds into soil, when I've already dumped money into my water bill, when I've already dumped money into amendments and everything else. It doesn't make sense to me to continue on here. Outside of Tucson, in Arizona, it makes more sense for me to go elsewhere where I can actually grow what I want to grow and be familiar with the environment that I'm growing in. The heat wave really killed me, guys. It just obliterated the majority of my stuff that I had babied for so long under grow lights. And I feel so insanely defeated. I literally, after I looked at the wholesale pricing and stuff and did the math and was trying to determine, what I was going to need, I just bawled my eyes out because it is the closing of a chapter in a way. But when you're kind of enthusiastic about what you do, it's heartbreaking. This isn't just like, oh, well, guys, I did it and I'm just, done. And, it was fun while we did it. I want to continue growing, but I can't. The conditions here make it almost impossible for me to do what I want to do with the knowledge that I have. So, and before anybody else out there says, well, go source from local flower, growers out there. I don't have any. I'm it. Me and maybe one or two other women in this county are it. Everybody else just grows zinnias or sunflowers, and that's it. Like, they don't do the full-scale farmers flower farming repertoire. So yeah, I'm a little bit heartbroken. I'm a little bit devastated over this. It sucks because I'm going to be stuck here for almost a year or so before we can make that move into greener pastures, to places that would be more viable for me to grow what I want to grow. So it sucks. Well, things have escalated rather quickly around here. If you saw my previous video, we were talking about, obviously, we're not going to be growing at this site with the farm any further, just due to frustrations and how things are growing, and just not having confidence in this market, essentially, that we're in order to kind of help us make up some of these losses that we were dealt this year. So we kind of went from, let's just take our time and deal with it, to let's burn it all down and do something new. If you're familiar with me and Paul, you know that that's nothing unusual for us. I mean, we uprooted our lives a few years back sold pretty much every possession we owned to live in a van and travel around the US. So this whole idea of, you know, not being complacent is nothing new. This morning I was talking to Paul. We were having our usual pep talk of, gosh, it's only such and such time and blah blah blah, and man, this is wearing me out, the people here are wearing me out, you know, just our usual airing of grievances over breakfast, I guess you could say. I just decided to start scanning through listings. I've been doing it now for the few weeks in multiple different states, just trying to see if there would be something that would be a semi-decent fit for us. And so this morning I just kind of did my usual, just kind of scanned through a couple different states. I hadn't looked at the listings in a few days, and there was a couple properties that stood out, and one stood out, well, I won't go into the property because it's not even like a finite thing yet, but anyways, we were looking at that, and I just got talking to Paul, and I'm just like, why can't we just go ahead and do what we want to do? Why are we just slaving around out here, you know, for a year that might not even be promised to us, when we can just take what we have, go elsewhere, and just continue to build upon it there? But the biggest thing is be able to grow what we want to grow, because to me that's the biggest caveat out here, is that we can grow things, but not near the amount and the quality that we want to see. And our growing backgrounds are from the Midwest, so we know how those seasons work, how the soil tends to be, silly simple things like that. And out here it's a whole different ball game. It's not impossible, but I've already ranted and raved about this so many times. There's just so many other factors out here that's just not helping us. I'm sure if we were in a different part of the state it might not be such an issue, but where we're at down here, there's just a lot of different factors that we just want to get out of here. I don't know how to put it other than we're absolutely miserable. It's kind of like if you feel like a prisoner, but then your form of joy, that something that brings you joy within that confinement, is kind of taken away from you. Like, what else do you have at that point? And that's kind of where we're at. I don't want to say that we're not grateful for what, not ungrateful for what we have. We have it a lot better, I think, than a lot of other people, which is the pep talk we basically say day in and day. It's like our mantra here, like, we have it so much better than so many people out there right now in this world. You know, we have a roof over our heads, our cars are paid off, we, you know, we have the ability to do some of the things we want to do. Our fridge is never empty. It's just, we want to find something that brings us joy, and it's not happening out here. And so anyways, so I started looking through listings. I found something I liked, and instead of just being like, well, whatever, you know, I did show it to Paul. He was kind of interested in it, and so we've started the process now of actually going through that. And so today was a really chaotic day for me, actually, because it involved a lot of steps. As a lot of you know who purchase homes, it's literally like do this, and this, you know. So we started that process. I reached out to a real estate agent in that area. She was fantastic. If this works out, or if we use her for wherever we land up, I'm actually probably going to give her a major shout out, because she was right on top of stuff. She like literally went out to that property today. She knew what I was talking about. She gave me some warnings about the property that she was aware of, but once I kind of told her what we were looking for, it kind of like, she's like, okay. No offers have been submitted as of the recording of this. And then on top of all of this, we have this house and property to think of, and so I have actually reached out to a real estate agent in my area, who I actually sold flowers to him. He was one of my first customers, actually, I basically told him the situation. So he's going to be meeting with us next week in order to kind of start that process of seeing what he thinks this home is worth, and just kind of probably doing a walkabout and all that stuff. So and then from there we just go to listing everything. And so I know what people are saying, well, if your property you're thinking about and wherever it doesn't work out and it falls through and you don't get financing or whatever else you're wanting to do with that, then what are you going to do? And so that is the next caveat. Again, Paul and I were talking literally so much about this that he had to call to work and be like, I'm gonna be late, because it was just so intense, and it was just one of these like, let's get this shit on the road. And so anyways, to that point, we have decided if that part falls through, we're going back on the road. And I know that probably feels really crazy for a lot of people to hear that, but we just, would prefer to get things moving. And if we're on the road, that gives us more flexibility as well to kind of travel to places if we need to view things, to kind of get a feel for the land wherever we're going. And then also gives Paul the flexibility to pick up seasonal work if he has to do that in order for us, because obviously he's not going to have his current job if we pursue that. So there's a lot of, spinning plates all in one day. I've already started packing up. As you can see, I am clearing out my grow room. I still have seedlings started, which is just, it's crazy, guys. It just shows you like how quick things change. But I'd rather go somewhere I want to be than be complacent in a place that just is absolutely miserable. So anyways, I wanted to just film this really quick to give you an update, because this seems so crazy, and I'm sure there'll be other updates coming along with as this whole entire thing progresses. But anyways, thanks for watching, take care, and see you next time.